U.S. President Donald Trump says he has struck his biggest trade deal yet.
Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products.
To get the best deal for Canadians, and that's the focus.
Trump tried everything: pressure, threats, and even midnight tweets. He warned Canada that supporting Palestinian statehood would make it very hard to strike a trade deal. He tried to intimidate, but Canada didn't back down. Trump expected to strong-arm Canada into submission, but when he saw Canada holding firm, the script flipped. Canada made it clear, we'll only sign a deal that's right and fair for Canadians. Then came the public posturing. Trump, who once confidently declared, "We're going to win this tariff war," found himself practically begging for a deal he thought he controlled. But what he didn't expect was Canadian resistance. And when it came, he didn't handle it well. Yes, he said he liked Canada, claimed to have many friends there, but that didn't stop him from calling Canadian leadership weak and poorly led. "We don't want a tariff war," he said, "but if we have one, we'll win." Meanwhile, Canadian officials like Mark Carney calmly acknowledged the reality. Canada was still facing unjustified tariffs from its largest trading partner. But instead of panicking, they focused on strengthening the response at home. This wasn't just another trade dispute, it turned into a political humiliation. Trump's frustration wasn't really about trade policy, it was personal. Canada dared to act like a sovereign country, making independent decisions on foreign policy. That lit a fuse under Trump's ego. His reaction? A tantrum on social media. No diplomatic outreach, no private talks. Just a late-night tweet aimed at punishing Canada for recognizing Palestinian statehood. He didn't threaten France. He didn't threaten the UK. He didn't even touch Mexico, even though they recognized Palestine too. Why? Because Canada showed independence, and that shattered Trump's illusion of control. And when he's not in control, he lashes out. Instead of negotiating, he brought a wrecking ball to the table, hoping chaos would force Canada to fold. But this time, Canada didn't blink. Carney didn't grovel. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He made a foreign policy decision based on principle, and that was enough to send Trump spiraling. That's not leadership, that's insecurity. Trump accused Canada of unfairly taxing American farmers, throwing around numbers like over 200%. But the truth? Canada and the US are among the world's most deeply integrated, fair trading partners. Tariffs are negotiated, legal, and balanced. Trump doesn't care about those facts. He needs a villain to distract from his own economic mess. And in the absence of real enemies, he chose Canada. Not China, not Saudi Arabia, Canada. He talks about how America protects Canada militarily, implying that gives him the right to humiliate us economically. That's not partnership, that's coercion. Calling Canada poorly led, while dismantling his own departments, firing experts for telling the truth, and overseeing declining job numbers? That's rich. This isn't about protecting farmers. It's about scapegoating Canada to cover up his own failings, and when you're desperate for a win, you'll lash out at whoever won't play by your rules. This time, he picked the wrong neighbor. Trump feels free to share his most unfiltered thoughts at any hour, no matter how ridiculous. Honestly, it's surprising he hasn't tweeted conspiracy theories about Trudeau dating a pop star. That's the kind of erratic behavior we're dealing with. So, yes, we should expect more outbursts. But here's what really matters. If Trump is now complaining that Canada is acting like an independent nation, making its own foreign policy decisions, and that disqualifies us from a free trade deal, that's a clear message. It's not about trade, it's about control. As Carney warned during the campaign, Trump's tactics resemble organized pressure campaigns. He doesn't negotiate, he threatens. He doesn't respect sovereignty, he punishes it. When Canada stood up and made its own foreign policy choice, Trump saw it as betrayal. That's not normal, it's dangerous. And the hypocrisy? Other nations also recognized Palestine. Mexico did. So did many in Europe. But Trump didn't go after them. He went after us, Canada. Because we dared to stand up. Why target Canada? Because Trump expected obedience. He assumed Canada would roll over. But when Mark Carney didn't flinch and Canada stood firm, acting like a mature player on the global stage, Trump's frustration boiled over. His outburst wasn't about trade, it was about losing control. Canada calmly demonstrated that his threats no longer hold power. And here's the real issue. Trump never wanted a fair trade deal. He wanted control, a leash. He didn't want a partner, he wanted a pet. But Mark Carney made it clear, Canada isn't something to tame. We're a sovereign nation, and this time, we bit back. Yes, the latest US job numbers were disappointing, but the real shock came when economists revised the May and June figures, wiping out nearly 260,000 jobs from the books. Why? Many say it reflects the uncertainty caused by Trump's trade war. Businesses aren't hiring until they know what's coming next. This is where Trump's house of cards starts to fall. The very tariffs he uses to threaten allies like Canada are now blowing holes in his own economy. Nearly 260,000 jobs vanished, not because of foreign sabotage or Canadian foul play, but because of Trump's own policies. Instead of taking responsibility, Trump attacked the truth tellers. He accused career statisticians of manipulating the data simply because the facts hurt his narrative. Even Republican senators had trouble defending that move. This isn't strength, it's panic. Firing officials for telling the truth isn't leadership, it's a cover-up. Trump's trade war hasn't strengthened America. It's spooked businesses, destabilized markets, and undermined trust in the data that guides policy. He's not protecting American workers, he's dismantling the system that tracks them. Canada sees what's happening, and more importantly, so do American economists, courts, and voters. Trump's economic empire wasn't built on solid ground, it was built on ego, and now it's collapsing. Meanwhile, Canada remains calm and focused. That's not just good diplomacy, that's real power. Canada is now looking forward, not inward. We're ready to build a strong, independent economy using Canadian labor, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. Countries around the world are eager to partner with us. Every time the Prime Minister travels abroad, he hears the same message. International businesses and foreign leaders want to work with Canada. That's the kind of leadership we voted for. One focused on building the strongest economy in the G7. While Trump lashes out on Twitter, Mark Carney moves with clarity and purpose. No outbursts, no gimmicks, just a steady plan for progress. Canada isn't waiting for the US to settle down. We're forging our own future, one that doesn't depend on American chaos. Carney's approach isn't about revenge, it's about resilience. Instead of bowing to threats, Canada is investing in its industries and people. That's not just sound policy, it's a matter of national dignity. While Trump isolates America with rage tweets and unstable tariffs, the rest of the world is lining up to work with Canada. Carney didn't ask for this confrontation, but he's using it to teach a valuable lesson. Canada doesn't need to be bullied into submission. We can build alliances, create prosperity, and come out stronger. When the US veers from tantrum to tariff, Canada walks a straight line. That's how you lead in a storm, with steady hands and sovereign strength. We must keep exercising our right to self-determination. Sovereignty is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it weakens. And Trump doesn't want to invade Canada, but he does want to control us. He's banking on the idea that eventually we'll grow tired of the chaos and give in. He thrives on exhaustion. But Carney is betting on endurance. This fight isn't about dairy or steel, it's about control. Trump wants to wear Canada down through economic pressure and psychological games. But Carney won't play the victim. That's the key difference. The Canadian government is standing tall. Our foreign policy, our trade policy, and our national identity are not for sale. Trump's tactics resemble those of a mob boss. He doesn't try to break you in one blow. He just keeps squeezing, hoping you'll give up. But he miscalculated because Canada doesn't back down. We negotiate based on principle, not pressure. When we say we won't accept a bad deal, we mean it. This isn't just about trade, it's about sovereignty. And every time Carney refuses to bend, he sends a powerful message. Canada is not a junior partner. We are equals, and we will not trade our independence for convenience or quiet. Trump's mistake is assuming every country behaves like one of his boardrooms, full of nervous yes men. But Carney is the quiet strength Trump never saw coming. Now Trump is shouting into the void, but Canada's not listening. We're too busy building something better, and here's the irony. Canadian exports to the US are more protected than Trump wants people to believe. Thanks to the CUSMA agreement, almost 90% of Canadian exports can enter the US tariff-free, if companies complete the proper paperwork. It's a bureaucratic hurdle, yes, but one worth crossing. Trump threatened Canada with fire, but forgot to check if we were already fireproof, because we are. While Europe and Japan were bracing for sweeping tariffs, Canada quietly secured exemptions that shield 90% of its exports. That wasn't luck, it was smart strategy. That was Carney at work. While Trump was firing off threats on Twitter, Canada was busy locking in legally binding protections. Now, even if Trump hikes tariffs, the damage to Canada is minimal. This isn't just about surviving, it's about outmaneuvering. Trump promised to punish Canada, but instead, he exposed just how resilient our trade system really is. Carney didn't win by shouting louder. He won by doing the hard work, securing rules of origin, enforcing compliance, and staying calm while Trump tried to set the global economy on fire. That's how Canada turned Trump's tariff gun into a water pistol. And the best part? Even Trump's own advisors admit the exemptions are solid. He can bark and bluster all he wants, but the rules are already working in Canada's favor. We didn't just dodge the bullet, we moved the target entirely. Meanwhile, Trump has been loudly criticizing Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, someone he appointed himself. He's been pressuring Powell to cut interest rates or resign. And now, a key Fed governor, Adriana Kugler, is stepping down, potentially opening the door for Trump to install someone more loyal, just as Powell's term comes to an end. This is more than political theater. It's a serious move to control the very heart of America's economy. Trump isn't content with firing labor officials. He wants control over the Fed too. And why? Because he can't stand economic data that doesn't flatter him. He's not fixing the economy. He's trying to fix the scoreboard. This isn't just bad for America. It's dangerous for the entire global economy. If the Federal Reserve becomes a political puppet, the world loses one of its most trusted financial anchors. Canada sees the writing on the wall. That's why Carney's push to diversify our trade isn't just patriotic. It's smart, forward-thinking risk management. Trump is turning the US economy into a personal vanity project while Canada is preparing for the long game, diversifying markets, reinforcing ties beyond the US, and refusing to sign bad deals just to end a tantrum. Carney is future-proofing our economy. That's the difference between a leader and a liability. While Trump scrambles to control the Fed, Carney is focused on steering Canada toward long-term security. And in that contrast, Canada wins, not by shouting, but by planning. The real headline from last week's US job report wasn't the weak numbers. It was the massive revision of past data. Almost 260,000 jobs were quietly erased from May and June's totals. For perspective, normal job growth hovers around 100,000 to 200,000 per month. May only saw 19,000. June, just 14,000. That's not a slowdown, that's a nosedive. As the day wore on, markets started to slide. Even Trump's own economic advisor had to admit it. Yeah, we've created some turmoil. They even blamed mass deportations for disrupting the labor market. But here's where the entire illusion collapses. All the chest thumping, all the tariffs, all the America First talk, undone by nearly 260,000 missing jobs. Trump's trade war, which was supposed to bring back factories and punish foreign cheaters, is now backfiring. And he knows it. His advisors know it. Wall Street knows it. American workers feel it every day. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Trump thought he could bluff his way to global dominance. But the numbers tell a different story. He didn't fix the system, he broke it. And firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics won't change that. When a president fires the referee because he doesn't like the score, that's not leadership. That's a breakdown. Canada didn't panic. We didn't sack economists. We didn't try to rewrite the facts. We planned ahead. While Trump had tantrums, Carney had a plan. And now, the results are speaking for themselves. As the US loses its economic footing, Canada is gaining leverage. Some are comparing the EU and Japan's tariff deals with Trump to Canada's position. But it's not a fair comparison. Europe and Japan are stuck with 15% tariffs across the board. Canada, meanwhile, faces higher numbers, 25%, potentially 35%, but only on a very narrow slice of exports. Would you rather have a moderate tariff on nearly everything, or a high tariff on a tiny fraction? That's the power of Canada's KUSMA carve-out. It's a massive exemption that Europe and Japan simply don't have. And that's what Trump doesn't want Americans, or even Canadians, to fully understand. While he was boasting about flashy deals with other nations, Canada already held the real advantage. Thanks to those exemptions, nearly 90% of our exports enter the US tariff-free, regardless of Trump's threats. So while other countries take hits from blanket tariffs, Canada walks through the chaos with a diplomatic shield. And none of it was accidental. This is the result of Carney's strategic chess match. He didn't grovel for exemptions. He didn't trade away Canada's sovereignty. He locked in long-term structural benefits, even while Trump ranted, and that's what infuriates Trump. He couldn't bend Canada to his will. He couldn't out-negotiate us. And when the economic results rolled in, they didn't show a Trump victory. They showed Canada holding firm. That's why Trump's hostility toward Canada seems so exaggerated. It's not really about trade. It's about frustration. It's envy. He couldn't break us. He couldn't intimidate us. And he certainly couldn't outsmart us. Canada didn't play by Trump's rules. And we didn't have to. We played by our own. And we won. Clearly, that's not what's happening right now. Despite Trump's loud announcements of supposed deals with other countries ahead of his deadline, none of them have resulted in actual signed agreements. No official texts, no binding terms, just vague promises. So, that flashy signing ceremony at the White House? It's likely to be all show and no substance, just another made-for-TV moment. Trump has always prioritized optics over outcomes. He doesn't need a real deal, just a photo op, a dramatic signature, and a burst of applause. But here's the truth. You can't bluff your way through economics. Markets don't care about press conferences or applause lines. They care about substance. And that's exactly what Trump consistently fails to deliver. He stages ceremonies without real trade text, while his own country's supply chains spiral into disarray. Meanwhile, Canada takes a quieter, more grounded approach. No theatrics, no grandstanding, just smart, steady diplomacy. Mark Carney didn't need a dramatic handshake. He needed lasting protections for Canadian industries, certainty for workers, and resilience for the long term. And that's what he delivered. While Trump prepares to put on a show, Canada has already secured the real win. No stage lights necessary. As for Trump, it's hard to predict what he'll react to next. He responds not to strategy, but to whatever impulse happens to strike him in the moment. But Canadians, we respond to leadership. We want a government, and a Prime Minister, that defends Canadian interests with integrity and resolve. Sure, we can debate our government's foreign policy decisions, including its stance on the Middle East. But at the end of the day, Canada has the right to make those decisions, and it has the right to speak for Canadians without asking for approval from Washington. This is where everything comes full circle. Canadians don't want theatrics. We want dignity. We don't want to be anyone's pawn, not even America's. Mark Carney didn't just speak for policy. He stood for Canadian values, independence, integrity, and strength. Trump campaigned on power and control. He thought if he pushed hard enough, yelled loud enough, Canada would break. But we didn't. Because we weren't trying to impress him, we were defending ourselves. And Canadians recognized that. They supported it. Because we've learned something vital these past few years. You don't deal with chaos by matching it. You deal with chaos by staying calm. You don't stand tall by bowing low. No matter how loud the threats become, Carney didn't escalate. He outsmarted. He didn't try to shout over Trump. He simply brought results. While Trump tried to trap Canada in a corner, he ended up grasping for a deal. One Carney would only agree to if it was on Canada's terms. Trump didn't win. He just didn't realize he'd already lost. The White House had hoped to wave around a glowing jobs report and say, "See, we were right all along." But the July numbers told a different story. Just 73,000 new jobs, far below expectations. And the bigger shock came from revised data for May and June, which showed that 258,000 jobs had quietly vanished. That's not a dip, that's a collapse. Trump didn't build the US economy, he damaged it. Losing 250,000 jobs in just 2 months isn't a policy flaw, it's economic sabotage. Behind those numbers are real families, parents, workers, skilled professionals, suddenly without work. And it all traces back to one man's obsession with dominance instead of preparation. He ignored warnings. He launched a reckless trade war to boost his ego, not to boost the economy. Mark Carney saw the fire spreading south of the border and made a different choice. He didn't panic, he prepared. Because when your neighbor's house is burning, you don't run in with gasoline. You shut your doors and protect your own. Trump wanted Canada to sign onto a broken deal. Carney said no. Not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. And now, as US workers face layoffs and growing uncertainty, Canada's industries continue to operate, to build, and to endure. Don't forget to subscribe to the Timefold channel and give us a like for more sharp and informed updates.